Can you hear us now? Okay. All right. So you'll have to unmute the microphone, and then I'll mute myself every time I stop speaking.
All right. You can hear me? Good afternoon. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Good. Okay. I'd like to call the meeting to order, the hybrid virtual planning commission meeting, first of its kind of July 9th, 2020. And I'd like to remind everyone to please silence all electronic devices. And for those who are attending virtually, mute your microphones while not speaking. At this time, I'd like to ask all of you to please rise for a moment of silence and a pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Clerk, could you call the roll?
Jamie Gerard. Michael Cox. Peter Hansel. Roberto Size,
Here.
Christopher Poole, Chris Williams,
Here.
and Chairman Charles Gray.
Start again. The Planning Commission, appointed by the Board of County Commissioners, we meet. Planning Commission serves as a local planning agency, and the Planning Commission holds public hearings and transmits to the Board of County Commissioners recommendations on comprehensive plan amendments, land development code amendments, rezonings, and conditional use requests. Planning Commission is the final decision-making body for special exceptions, certain appeals, variance requests, certain alternative standard requests. However, final decisions may be appealed to the Board of County Commissioners. If anyone is in opposition to any comprehensive plan amendment, land development code amendment, rezoning, conditional use, or any item where the Planning Commission transmits a recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners, it's important for you to attend the appropriate Board of County Commission meeting. And we have a list of those dates if you need them. I believe we have some minutes to approve. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the June 4th virtual meeting minutes.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on the motion? All in favor? They signify by saying aye.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman.
Aye.
Jamie Girardi,
Aye.
Peter Hansel, Roberto Size,
Aye.
Christopher Poole,
Aye.
Chris Williams,
Aye.
and Chairman Charles Gray.
Aye. All right, first we take public comment for items not on the agenda from the public comment kiosk and WebEx participants who have pre-registered. Do we have any of those, Ms. Hernandez? No?
There's no one here to, there's no one registered to speak on public comment.
Okay. So here are the public hearing proceedings. Participants attending to the public comment kiosk and WebEx participants, including the applicants who have pre-registered for the hybrid virtual planning commission meeting, will be notified by county staff when they are permitted to speak. Applicants will be limited to 5 minutes and other participants will be limited to 3 minutes unless additional time is approved at least 24 hours in advance of this meeting, which we have none of those. Participants attending through the public comment kiosk or WebEx participants must announce the following items before speaking and at the time they will be sworn in by the clerk. Their name, their address, the agenda item or number, and the agenda title. Then the 3 or 5 minute timer will start. After the public comment kiosk and WebEx participants, we will read into the record public comments, documents, PowerPoints, or videos that have been identified by members of the public to be read out loud or played at the meeting, limited to 5 minutes for applicants and 3 minutes for others. And I think we have one of those. Is that right, Denise? Okay. Okay. So today we have applications for 7 or 8.
We have 7 items on the agenda today. Let's see, we have 8 items on the agenda today.
Yeah, we have 8 items on the agenda today, and some of them will be on consent agenda. Those items we'll go through each at a time, and if there are any questions about that, the members of the board can pull those items for discussion, and we can have a discussion about those at the end. We will approve whatever's left on consent. We'll approve at one time. Then we have regular items. Those items will be heard, and I think there are 3 of those. They are not on consent. They are regular items, and we will be hearing the applicants and hearing the other persons who wish to speak on those items. And I think we have 1 continuance, and it's our custom to grant continuances that are requested by either the applicant or the staff for various reasons, unless there are extenuating circumstances. So with that, I think we can continue, right?
Yep,
Thank
we
you.
can start, Mr.
All
Chair.
right, Denise, thank
I
you.
do want to, Denise Hernandez, Planning and Development Department. I do want to state for the record that items PC3, PC5, and now PC6, we have been told that PC6, there is someone who would like to speak on that item there's someone at the public kiosk to speak on PC6. So PC3, PC5, and PC6 will be pulled from consent.
Okay. PC3, PC5, and 6, you said?
Yes,
right?
PC6, yes.
Okay, so we have 1 item for continuance, that's PC1.
Yeah, so I'll read that item into record. It's PDD 20 CU 20. It's conditional use CNRV Enterprises LLC T-Mobile Reliant Towers. This is for 160 foot above ground level monopole wireless communications tower facility in the C2 General Commercial District. The applicant has requested a continuance to the August 27th Planning Commission meeting at 1:30 p.m. in Newport Richey. The applicant has also stated that he is not virtually in attendance because he had a conflict. So he's not virtually in attendance.
Okay, and there's no one else to speak on it?
No one is signed up to speak on the item.
All right, so we have a request for continuance. It's not opposed by the staff. Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion for approval of the continuance.
We have a motion to continue. Any second?
I'll second.
And a second, any further discussion? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Roll call.
Jamie Girardi.
Aye.
Roberto Size.
Aye.
Christopher Poole.
Aye.
Chris Williams.
Aye.
And Chairman Charles Gray.
Aye.
Following item is PC2, that's PDD 20 CU 31. It's in the name of Grand Trinity Plaza LLC, Suncoast Wine and Liquor, for the sale of alcoholic beverages, beer, wine, and liquor, package sales only in conjunction with the operation of a liquor store in the C2 General Commercial District. Comes to you with a recommendation of approval with conditions.
All right. The applicant present?
The applicant is virtually present.
Okay, do they have anything to say?
The applicant does not have any.
Is there
anything
anybody to
say.
object?
No one is here to object on the item.
Let's go to PC4.
PC4 is PDD 27488 in the name of Richard B. Anderson Revocable Living Trusts, change in zoning from C1 Neighborhood Commercial to R2 Low Density Residential District. Comes to you with a recommendation of approval.
All right, and the applicant is present,
The applicant is virtually present, yes.
and no one is virtually there to object.
No one is here to object or has signed up to object on the matter.
All right, next. That is PC7.
Following item, PC7, PDD 207468, in the name of Hayes Road Master Plan Unit Development, Hayes Road Project LLC. This is a rezoning from AC Agricultural District to an MPUD, Master Plan Unit Development District, to allow for 99 single-family detached units on approximately 29 acres. Comes to you with a recommendation of approval with conditions as included in your packet.
All right, is the applicant present?
The applicant and the applicant's team are virtually present.
All right, is there anyone here to object?
No one has signed up to object on this matter.
Therefore, the applicant has nothing to add to this unless we have questions.
That's correct.
Okay. Does anybody have questions about item PC7? Okay. So I believe we have items PC2, PC4, and PC7, which remain on consent. I have a motion to approve of the consent agenda as amended.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda for items PC2, PC4, and PC7.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a second. Any further discussion on the motion? All in favor of the motion signify by roll call.
Jamie Girardi.
Aye.
Roberto Size.
Aye.
Christopher Poole. Chris Williams.
Aye.
And Chairman Charles Gray.
Aye.
And excuse me, for the record, the items were published in the Tampa Bay Times on June 24th, 2020.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Denise. I think
Okay, so we're going to move on to item PC3.
Right.
And I will share my screen in a second. This will be presented by Christina Acosta. On this item, we do have the applicant and applicant's team are physically, actually virtually in attendance. And we do have someone that is objecting on this item that has registered. So I'm going to share my screen and hope for the best.
Okay, we also, I want to recognize one of our board members, Mr. Chris Poole, who has a statement regarding this item.
Right.
Oh, thank you so much. Yes.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I do have a conflict of interest on this item, so I'm going to recuse myself from voting or comment on it.
Okay.
All right. And if we can bring up Christina Acosta to present the item, please.
Good afternoon, Christina Acosta from PDD. The first item that we're going to hear today is rezoning ER Estate Residential District, PO1 Professional Office District, in the name of Pasco Office Park LLC. The property is located on the northwest side of Old Pasco Road, approximately 330 feet southwest of Boom Boom Drive. The owners propose to rezone the approximately 1.85 acre property in order to develop the site in conformance with PO1 Professional Office District standards. The surrounding area is characterized by existing residential and entitled professional office uses, Quail Hollow / Pasco Office Park MPUD. The subject area has a future land use classification of residential 6 dwelling units per acre under the comprehensive plan. Small-scale office development of 5 acres or less may be permitted within areas designated as residential future land use, where the site provides adequate buffers and is oriented to minimize impact on adjacent residential uses. A survey that was done recently identified wetlands on the site, and any impacts or mitigation that will be required are deferred to SwiftMud and will be addressed at the time of site plan review. Here's a quick look at the surrounding zoning and showing the future land use of Res 6. And here's an overall aerial of the area of the site. This comes to you with a recommendation of approval. And I'm here for any questions you have.
So, does anybody here have a question?
I have a question. Costa, what are the appropriate buffers between residential and professional office like this?
If you give me just one moment, I can look it up. I believe they were identified in the pre-app, and I can just let you know. One moment. If anybody else has another question while I'm looking this up, I just don't want to have the dead air while I find the answer. Okay.
Anyone else have a question?
Sorry.
Anybody else have a question? Or is that the only one?
Okay.
That's the only one so far. That's the only one so far.
Okay, so to the residential that's going to be just to the east of them, there's a B buffer required, which is 15 feet, a single row of trees, maximum of 60 feet on center, and 6 feet high visual screen.
You said to the east?
Well,
South.
my apologies. So the east is more office. To the west is where the next ER lot is located, and they have it's the 15-foot single row of trees, 6-foot high visual screen, same.
What about the south? Is that the same?
To the south is a D buffer, which I'm not exactly sure. I'd have to look up what the D buffer is, but it's very small because it's a road to the south.
Parcels.
Yeah, that's okay. All right, gotcha. All right.
So to the east of the site is more office, to the south of the site is the road, and to the west of the site is an ER residential lot. Just to be clear of that area, sorry.
Okay, great. All right, that was I think you said, Mr. Williams, satisfied with that answer. Okay, does the applicant have anything to add? I think you said. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So that's what we need to know. If the applicant wants to.
So I believe Mr. Jim O'Brien is on here, and Greg Wegner. So if you would
This is
have
Greg.
them.
This is Greg Wegener. We're happy to answer any questions that y'all might have, but we'd like to just reserve our time for responses if there are any required.
Great.
Okay.
Okay, so you would like Mr. Metzger to go first?
That's fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, if we could have Mr. Metzger please provide comments on the item.
Go ahead, Mr. Metzer. You've been unmuted and you're ready to go.
Let's get folks sworn in, actually. Greg, can we get your team to be sworn in first?
Of course.
So we're going to be swearing in Greg Wegner, Steve Henry, and Jim O'Brien. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Okay.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth so help you God?
I do.
Thank you. And then we'll try to get Mr. Metzger on here, please.
He is on, Denise,
Okay,
and he is unmuted.
excellent. Mr. Metzger, would you please provide your name and address for the record, and the clerk will swear you in?
Okay, my name is Alan Metzger. I'm at 6139 Old Pasco Road. I am the property right next to the proposed office park.
Thank you. And you'll be sworn in now. Thank you.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth so help you God?
Yes, I do.
Go ahead, Mr. Metzger. You have 3 minutes.
Okay, I'm asking you to vote against the zoning change to the proposed office district. My concern is protection of the wetlands on the property and the runoff that already saturates the area because of the high-risk flood zone. I have a large pond with fish which gets runoff from those wetlands next to me. Also, the effect on my septic system and the non-functional and makes it non-functional in high rains because of poor drainage, high water table. The projected office park will pave over more land. Already the construction and widening of the intersection at Boom Boom Drive is causing slower drainage on the property. Also, my concern for an adequate residential buffer to protect my property. I moved here from Wesley Chapel 6 years ago from Broward County. I saw the results of poor planning, lots of lanes and tons of traffic lights. They're always trying to correct their previous poor decisions. So is there a 10, 20, or 50-year plan for Wesley Chapel that the current residents would approve? Bigger is not always better. Quality of life is more important. Will the leaders making decisions be affected by those decisions? I know when Quail Hollow Golf Course was approved from 300 to 400 homes, which means an additional 150 to 200 more cars clogging Old Pasco Road. There were, those not affected voted yes, and Mr. Moore voted no because we can affect him at the ballot box. We don't need 2,000 more cars clogging our roads, which is what will happen with just the current approved developments. Or the 30 or 40 school buses that travel Old Pasco Road 4 times a day to the multi-million-dollar school you built in the middle of nowhere without adequate access. Now you're forced to widen the roads because of poor people, all in a plan to force our 4-lane highways everywhere. So, forgive me, but I don't trust public commissioners because they always vote against the wishes of existing. And I'm very nervous.
Okay, Mr. Metzger, thank you for your comments. Yes, that's the only, we do have Greg Wegner and his team, Jim O'Brien and Steve Henry on the item.
All right.
Greg,
so
are you
Greg,
ready?
Greg Wegner, if you could try to respond to those concerns, we'd appreciate it.
Yeah, we acknowledge that there's a wetland on site. At this point, we really don't plan on impacting it. If we do, it would
Let me
be.
start. I'm sorry, Greg. We're going to start the timer for 5 minutes. Thank you.
Okay. At this point, we acknowledge that there's a wetland. We've had an environmentalist go out and do a study. They've established what those wetland limits are. Any impacts to that would probably be minimal, if any. At this point, our concept plans, which we have shared with staff, do not propose impacts to the actual wetlands. We would, that wetland will actually act as a very large, significantly larger than 15 or 20 feet worth of the code buffer. It will act as a significantly larger than that buffer to the adjacent residential owner there. Any stormwater requirements will be met with, will meet whatever the water management district criteria is for that particular site. And we look forward to answering any questions y'all might have.
Okay. Do we have any questions of the applicant from the dais?
I guess just public, or just comment on the item here that has to vote on. I mean, obviously this thing still has to go through site plan for site plan approval. I believe I haven't seen anything in my packet that shows the layouts that may address some of the concerns that Mr. Metzger provided. But you know, he is going to have another bite at the apple per se whenever he can review the site plan once it's submitted. So there are agencies out there that are going to look at all the stormwater issues, all the wetland issues, the adjacent septic tank issues. I mean, agencies are going to look at that stuff during review for site plans. So, I mean, a lot of the concerns are going to need to be addressed when they submit their construction plans for review, and I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, I think Chairman Gray, I just think a lot of these items are not really germane to our decision. Our decision is really based upon whether it's an appropriate use of the property. As far as the specifics of can they ultimately use it and what the restrictions and limitations are going to be, that's not something that we speak to, or that's not something that we make decisions on. So our decision is limited to land use and appropriate use of the property. So just as a point of clarification. So any other comments or concerns, Ms. Williams?
Just a question. I don't know if Denise knows the answer. I know they've been studying, but do we have a timeline yet for the widening of Old Pasco Road?
So if one of my colleagues can answer that question as to what the timeline for widening the Old Pasco Road is.
Christina.
If one of my colleagues can please answer the question on what the timeline for the widening of Old Pasco Road is, would you please unmute yourself?
Yeah, hi, this is Hassan Khalil with current planning. The current CIP, I'm pulling it up right now. It shows the widening of Old Pasco from Quail Hollow to just north of Overpass Road. It says construction design fiscal year 18-19, construction is 19-20. So I would say this year probably will be in construction. So it's within 12 months of approval of this zoning.
And is that construction for 4-lane?
Please, can you say a little bit louder, please?
Oh, sorry. Essen, is that construction for 4-lane, or is that just the intersection at Quail Hollow and Old Pasco?
No, I believe the construction has to do with the CIP states it as Old Pasco Road safety improvement. So I think they're widening it. The construction at the intersection, according to CIP, is already completed.
This is Steve Henry. Maybe I can clarify a little bit. There's 3 different projects going along Old Pasco Road. The first one, as Essen had indicated, which is the intersection of Quail Hollow and Old Pasco. That's under construction. Then there's the safety improvement that's going from Quail Hollow to Overpass, and that's scheduled for 2019-20. Then there's the widening that you're speaking of, and that's going all the way down to 54 and then up to tie into 52. And that is currently budgeted for 21-22.
Okay.
This is Margaret Smith. I'm the county engineer, and 21-22 is the design funding. That's just the beginning. So that's when we are expecting to begin design. We also have a right-of-way phase after that. We don't have the funding, I think, in the 2020, until probably that's around about 27, 28 for widening. I don't have that date in front of me, but maybe looking at that CIP project and not noticing that it says.
So it sounds like the late, like 27, 28, somewhere in there for actual construction and widening of that then. And so, Mr. Chair, I'll just make a comment too. As the guy who bought the property out in the middle of nowhere for that school, unfortunately, infrastructure doesn't always come in nice packages. And so sometimes we have to purchase school sites where we can afford it and where there's available land, knowing that more houses are coming and to meet the demand. And so we had an opportunity many, many years ago to purchase that property for a very good deal. And Mr. Gadd and I, when we purchased that property, said, well, either people are going to think we're rocket scientists or really stupid, because it is out in the middle of nowhere. But, Overpass Road and the intersection of 75, that is getting built. More houses are coming. And unfortunately, Old Pasco Road is a narrow road. And that's unfortunate, but that's planned for the future. But again, we had a site that we could put a beautiful campus, a middle school and a high school, and the future, the fine arts facility for Pasco Hernando State College is going up on that campus. And it's a great addition to the community. And it would have been nice to have the road all widened beforehand, but unfortunately the timing didn't work out.
Well, you sound like you did a brilliant job to me.
Thank you.
All right, are there any more questions of the applicant? If not, I'll hear a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve PC3.
Second.
And we have a second. Any further discussion? All in favor by roll call?
Jamie Girardi,
Aye.
Roberto Size,
Aye. Sorry.
And for the record, Christopher Poole is abstaining from the vote due to a conflict of interest. Chris Williams
Aye.
and Chairman Charles Gray.
Aye. All right.
We will now move on to item PC5, and I'm going to bring that PowerPoint up on the item. And this will be presented by Christina Acosta. We do have applicants here, and the applicant team on that is our Cindy Terrapini, Lori Katzman, Paul Skidmore, and Ms. Peggy Campbell. We also have some public comment. 1, 2, 3, 4. A team of about 6 or 7 folks.
Back there, please.
Or-
The cat just opened it. Just leave it a crack in case he wants to get back.
There's a team of public commenters also on WebEx as well on this item. So I am going to bring up the presentation. If you give me a second.
Okay.
And Christina Acosta will be presenting the item.
Hi again, Christina Acosta from Planning and Development. Item P5 is item PDD 20-7489 for a change in zoning from C2 General Commercial District to RMH Mobile Home District in the name of Truman D. and Margaret G. Campbell and Truman Don Campbell Revocable Trust. Located on the east side of US 41, approximately half a mile north of State Road 52. The subject site is undeveloped and contains approximately 43.9 acres. The applicants propose to rezone the property in order to develop the site with a single-family detached subdivision in conformance with RMH Mobile Home District standards for development. The applicant has voluntarily agreed to record a deed restriction limiting the site to a maximum of 120 single-family detached dwelling units and prohibiting mobile and manufactured homes. The deed restriction has been executed and will be filed with the county upon final approval with the BCC. The surrounding area is characterized by residential development, entitled commercial parcels, and agricultural pursuits. The subject area has a future land use classification of retail office residential under the comprehensive plan, and a singular use on the site is permitted due to the mix of uses in the ROR corridor. The subject site is approximately 14% of the total ROR corridor. And here is a look at the property and its surrounding zoning and the future land use corridor and an overall area of the site. This comes to you with a recommendation of approval, and I am here for any questions.
Christina, just clarify something for me. We're asking for a rezoning to R1MH, is that right? Yeah, RM.
To RMH, yep. But single-family homes are permitted in this district.
What is?
The single-family homes are permitted in this district, and the applicant has recorded a deed restriction that will prohibit mobile or manufactured homes. So they're building a single-family subdivision, no mobile homes,
Okay, so they're going to be site-built homes?
site-built homes.
All right, for some reason I had it in my mind that RMH was designed for mobile homes, meaning.
That's a correct statement, Mr. Chair. Denise Hernandez, Planning and Development. So you're correct. RMH historically has been a zoning district that is for mobile homes or modular homes. What occurred is in 2017, 2018 or so, we had a few projects over on the west side of the county that were zoned RMH. And there was an area of land that was going to be acquired by Habitat for Humanity, and they wanted to build site-built homes specifically. So the Board of County Commissioners directed the Planning and Development Department to make modifications to the RMH district because it made no sense for RMH to only have mobile homes. So I do understand that we probably should change the name of the district. But in this case, this applicant has voluntarily agreed to record a deed restriction that prohibits mobile and manufactured homes. It's going to be for single family detached homes only. It's basically they're on 40-foot lots. So this is kind of like a way to, as long as they remain within the density or the less density, to not go through have to go or mandate the master plan unit development district process. And there is a team on here to speak on the item. And if we can, of course, please entertain any other questions from the Planning Commission members. But I just wanted to let you know that there's a team here: Peggy Campbell, Paul Skidmore, Lori Katzman, and Cindy Terrapini. And there's also Mr. Richard Budd, Alita Budd, Julie Albers, Matthew Wallace, Mark Budd, and Mark Swalfhoven, also on WebEx to speak on the item. We're not sure if it's opposition, but they do have public comment that they would like to provide on the item.
Okay. I want to ask something about lot size, but Christina, I don't have to ask you. I could ask, Ms. Terrapini or somebody like that, whoever you feel is appropriate. I'm just, with a 40-foot lot size, are they contemplating like the garden patio style home where they're sort of semi-attached, or how is that? I'm trying to figure out how it's going to look or how it's going to play.
Well, as far as how the homes themselves will look, I would have to defer to the applicant, but they are stating that the homes will be single family detached. So not townhomes, not villas, but on their own lots.
Okay, and what are the setbacks from that type of property?
So for RMH, the setbacks would be 20 or 15, depending. If it's in a subdivision, it would be 20, 5-foot side, and the rear would be 5.
Okay. So nothing more, you couldn't build anything wider than 30 feet.
If you decide to use 40-foot homes, or 40-foot wide lots, we can ask Ms. Terrapini and her team and see what they're proposing.
All right, Christina, you're off the hot seat. Okay. Ms. Terrapini, is she available there?
So Cindy Terrapini, Paul Skidmore, Lori Katzman on this item. We would like for you to be sworn in for the record. And when you speak, please state, when you're going to be speaking, please state your name and your address for the record as well. So we'll swear you in first.
All right, please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth to help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Ms. Terrapini, do you want to answer the questions that the chairman had? Or do you want to answer that question and then perhaps let the folks that are here for public comment so that then you can answer those questions?
Mr. Chairman, this is Cindy Terrapini. I represent the applicant, the owners of the property, Truman and Margaret Campbell. I'm hoping you can hear me okay. If not, please say so.
No, I can hear you just fine. And if you want to wait to answer
Thank you.
my questions at the end, you can do that too. So whatever's best
Okay,
for
so
you.
I can answer it right away. And then I do have a brief presentation, and then I'm happy to answer questions from the board and from any of the surrounding neighbors. First of all, we do plan to do single family detached. The size
Cindy,
of the home,
Cindy, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Would you state your name and your address for the record so the clerk can pick that up, please?
Sure. Good afternoon. I'm Cindy Terrapini with Terrapini Planning Strategies. My business address is 128 East Tarpon Avenue in Tarpon Springs, Florida. And as I said, I represent the property owners, Truman and Margaret Campbell, and also the contract purchasers. And to answer Mr. Gray's question, we plan to build single-family detached homes on a 40-foot lot. That means with 5-foot setback on either side, that would be a maximum width of a product of 30 feet. And that is what we're proposing to build in this development. Let me just back up a little bit and tell you a little more about how we got to this application. The site is currently zoned C2, general commercial, on the entire 43 acres. And although, as your staff has stated, the RMH does allow both mobile homes and single-family detached, the property owners have signed a deed restriction, and we provided that to the county, that prohibits mobile homes on the site and would limit the site to a maximum of 120 lots. Will probably be somewhat less than that, but that's the absolute maximum according to the deed restriction. If the rezoning is approved by the commission, we will record that deed restriction and of course be bound by it. In addition to limiting the number of units on the site to a maximum of 120, it's also a significant downzoning that really significantly decreases the amount of development on the site. From about 630,000 square feet of commercial development could be accommodated on the site. So this rezoning would eliminate the ability for any commercial uses on the property. In this area 41, just north of 52, is rapidly developing with residential uses. The Talavera MPD on the west side of 41 is aligned, its southern border is aligned with our northern border. It was approved in 2004 for 840 homes, and many of those homes have been built and they continue to be under construction. To the east of our site is the Pilot Country Estates, also a residential neighborhood with an airport. It should be noted that our east property line adjacent to Pilot Country has two large wetlands that will form a natural buffer between this site, the rezoning site, and the Pilot Country homes. Additionally, there are only 4 homes in Pilot Country Estates immediately adjacent to the residential site. And again, between those homes and the rezoning site is this wetlands, which will serve as a buffer. The other thing I would note is the closest home location on this rezoning site to the runway will be about 850 feet. And the closest that a home would be to the closest home in Pilot Country Estates is about 350 feet, and it ranges up to 750 feet separation. And we're aware that this review, that FAA review is required. We've already submitted for their review and approval. And we also propose to include a disclosure in our sales contract to advise future owners of the Pilot Country Airport in proximity to the site. The site has sewer and water utilities available to it today. There will be a negligible traffic impact for the project as compared to the commercial development that could have been built here under the commercial C2 zoning. And this site requests residential zoning as exists to the east, the southwest, and the northwest. And additionally, immediately to the north is the R1 MH zoning district. In summary, this rezoning for residential development is compatible with surrounding residential development and meets all the land development code criteria for approval. Your staff has recommended approval, as Ms. Hernandez stated, due to the small size of the property and the fact that there is only one use on the property of residential and only one type of residential use, that the MPD seems like an overkill to use that, to employ that technique for this site. Respectfully request approval of your rezoning, and I'll be happy to answer your questions and reserve some time at the end for a response to any concerns from the neighbors if there are any. Thank you so much.
And the repeating question I have is, I have some concern about the fact that you're right next to Pilot Country. What I would hate to see is for us to allow development to go in there and then have them raise issues about there being an airport next to them. And then because I think, you know, they're there, they're already there. So I don't want to create a problem for the Pilot Country people either. So I don't know what if you thought about that, or if you talked to Pilot Country, or I don't even know if some of the people that are going to speak are from Pilot Country, but that's a concern I would have. I don't want to put them in a situation where they're under the gun there.
Sure, if I could respond briefly, and then I'm sure if there's someone here from them, they can speak for themselves too. But what we plan to do proactively is in our sales contracts, have a disclosure that states that there is an airport, and specifically named the Pilot Country Airport, located on State Road 52, include the address of the airport. And also I would suspect that many people, as they drive to the site to look at the property, are going to see that airport as they drive on 52. But regardless, we will include a disclosure in all these sales contracts that says, that notes the proximity of the Pilot Country Airport to the site where the homes will be built. We think that if you let people know in advance that that's a good solution, I'd also note that there are residential homes in this area in the flight path. Talavera is in the flight path as well. And quite frankly, development is moving north along this section of 41. So this is probably not the only case that you'll see with this issue come up. And we are respectful of Pilot Country Estates and their existing business and airport, and that's why we proposed the disclosure.
All right, good. I'm glad you've thought that through. Any other questions from the dais for Mr.
Only question for you, and I know you mentioned a couple times in your presentation that residential development continues to push north on 41. As I look at the map of all the development out there, though, are there other developments that are 40-foot lots? Everything I've seen in that area is 60-foot lots plus. I mean, you look at Pilot Country, obviously on the other side of the wetland, they're acre lots. The development on the other side of 41 is all 60-foot lots or 600 square feet. I mean, seems like it's pretty small lots for this area of the county.
You do have some 60-foot lots in Talavera, and we recognize that the 40-foot lots is a smaller lot. But quite frankly, it's just responding to the market of what is being demanded in the market, and that's what we're responding to. So that's why we proposed the 40-foot lots. Again, there is R1 MH to the immediate north of this property. It's undeveloped at this time, but it does have the R1 MH zoning district.
But the minimum lot size in R1 MH is 20,000 square foot, isn't it? Not 4,000?
Yes, 20,000.
I'm sorry, I wasn't aware of that. Wasn't sure of that size.
Yeah, R1 MH zoning by definition is a 20,000 square foot lot, R1 MH.
That's the main thing that gives me heartburn on this as far as R1 MH goes. I mean, as far as RMH goes, is it just these lots just seem awful small, that's all. Your microphone's on, John.
Your mic.
Cindy, can you hear me now?
I can, yes, sir.
No, I'm just trying to create a picture in my mind of what it would look like. Are they thinking about doing something like they did out in Longleaf with the narrow homes and the 2-story, or is it something like that?
The client who is the contract purchaser of the property is not the ultimate developer. But we do expect that there would be some 2-story homes on this property in addition to the 1-story home. So a mix of both.
Okay. All right. Anybody else have questions? If not, then we'll hear from the other people.
Yes, Mr. Chair, we do have some commenters signed up on WebEx, and at least 2 of those do represent the Pilot Country Estates Homeowners Association, and at least 1 of those does represent the Pilot Country Airport. If we can.
Richard Budd is not on, but I do have Alita Budd ready to go.
Okay. Ms. Alita Budd, would you please provide your name and address for the record, and if you would please be sworn in.
Sure. My name is Alita Budd. My address is 12051 Pilot Country Drive.
Can you please raise your right hand?
Sure.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Thank you. Ms. Budd, your 3 minutes will start now. Thank you.
Thank you. Is everybody able to hear me?
We hear you perfect.
Great. Thank you so much. So I'm hoping that you will not approve this rezoning. We've lived here for 21 years. And over the past few years, as you've said before, the growth here has developed very quickly. And so we are getting more and more noise complaints as our airplanes take off and land. Now we are a 24-hour airport, but we do not have airplanes that take off at 4 in the morning unless there's an emergency or somebody is scheduled to take out. And we do have people that landed in the evening. One of our concerns is, as the lady had spoke earlier, she had said that they were going to put a stipulation in for the homeowners to understand that they were building next to an airport. While I understand there's wetlands that are the buffer, it's the air that is not the buffer. So we have people that complain that airplanes are flying over their head and they're doing it illegally. And this land is in our flight pattern. So that is one of our concerns. We also have concerns with the environmental. Are these homes going to be on a well? What is the water runoff that will be affecting us here? And furthermore, we're one of only 3 airports in Pasco County. And to have this kind of development out here, we are very concerned with more and more noise complaints.
Ms. Budd, is that the end of your comment?
Ms. Budd? Showing up on the screen.
Ms. Budd, are
I
you
do
still there?
believe that is the end of her comment. She muted herself.
Okay. Okay, thank you for your comment, Ms. Budd. I also have signed up to speak on this item, Julie Albers.
Yes, she is now available.
Okay. Ms. Albers, would you please state your name and address for the record, and the clerk will swear you.
Julie Albers, 11991 Driver Lane. Can you
Please raise your right hand.
Yes.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
My question is, what's to stop the builder from changing the deed restrictions to allow mobile or rehab homes on the property? And then also, what square foot are the homes? Are they going to be 20 by 30 then? And I don't think Talavera is in the flight path. Thank you.
I heard about the deed restrictions. What was the other two?
What is the square footage of the homes? Is it 20 by 30 feet? If you do the math, that's what it appears to be. And then also,
Right.
I just wanted to state that I don't think Talavera is in the flight path of the airport. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your questions. Cynthia, does your team want to address those questions? And I think maybe David is chiming in probably about the deed restriction.
Well, the deed restriction would require the applicant to go back through the zoning process to have the board release the deed restriction. So it'd effectively require a new rezoning to have the deed restriction released. In fact, there's another item on the agenda today where that's exactly what's happening. They're seeking to have a deed restriction released.
All right. And maybe should we wait till we hear all the objectors before we address them?
Absolutely,
Let's do
Mr.
that.
Chair, if that's your
Let's just
pleasure,
do that.
absolutely. Following person I have signed up on this item is Matthew Wallace. Is Matthew Wallace on?
Yes, he is.
Mr. Wallace, would you please provide your full name for the record and your address, and then wait to be sworn in by the clerk? Thank you.
Matthew, we need your full name and address, please. Matthew, are you still there?
Mr. Wallace, try unmuting your phone or whatever device that you're on. You're unmuted on our side.
Well, let's go to the next person then and see if we
Okay,
can
we'll
come back.
move on to the next person. I have Go ahead, please. Mr. Wallace. Okay, we'll go on to Mark Twalfhoven. Are you on, sir? Mark Twalfhoven?
He's on now.
Yes, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen.
Please.
My name is Mark Twalfhoven. My name is Mark Twalfhoven. I live on 11851 Driver Lane at the airport. Besides being a resident, I'm also the owner of the airport. I am also joined here due to difficulties to connect by 3 additional residents, one of which has lived 40+ years on the airport and the other gentleman 15 years on the airport. I'm okay to be sworn in now.
Okay, please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth to help you God?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
I need to disclose that I have searched to have contact with the developer. I've met the developer and I've expressed my concerns also to the developer. The first observation is that this is a public use Federal Aviation Administration and FAA approved airport in Pasco County. We go by the name of Pilot Country Airport. X05 is our ticker. We get inspected on a yearly basis by FDOT. We have reviews and compliances to be made, and we are open to the public, not just for Florida, but for the general public in the United States. We are basically concerned about the impact to noise abatement, as we have had complaints increase recently. The airport communities are parcels of 1 acre. We have asked or requested the developer to see if they would maybe consider being larger parcels, then at least we don't have that density. We also had recently in December of last year, the state of Florida, FDOT, do an economic development assessment of the value of airports to the community. So there is a statewide economic impact study that was recently done. It also listed our airport. And we also have concerns about what we call the use zonage that goes around airports. So there has been a lot of discussion in the United States about what I would call the guidelines for land use and compatibility for airports. So our concern is not so much about that people want to develop or they want to develop homes. The concern is really for us that it is in compliance with the use of an airport. We are very concerned about the small airports. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, sir. You stated that you have some other folks there with you that want to provide comment as well.
Yes, I will let the gentleman who has been a resident 47 years here speak. Go ahead.
My name is Robert Garcia. I live on 11581 Pilot Country Drive. And like he said, I've been here for over 42 years. My biggest concern is the watershed.
Sir, please, we need to have you sworn in by the clerk. Thank you, sir.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth to help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
My biggest concern, my home is right behind this property. So my biggest concern is the watershed. One of the problems we have at Pilot Country is that it floods in the rainy season, and all of the water goes into that watershed that they're going to be working around. So the question that keeps coming up in my mind, how are we going to be able to work in the future if that water flow gets some sort of problems because of that construction? The second item that I have is the size of the homes. Most of the homes on Pilot Country, by the code, frankly, it was a code that the first owner developed, was 2,000 square foot minimum per home, okay? These homes on a 40 size acre property would not be that big. So what's that gonna do to our prices for our homes, our value of our homes, when we have something next door that is not as valuable? And you know, right now we're building a couple of homes in the neighborhood over $1 million each. So how are we going to be protected against something that is below the level that we got here? Thank you.
Okay.
Did you also say there was a third person there as well, Mr. Garcia or 12th person?
The other two people have elected to not speak as we have addressed the concerns already. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Okay, we'll now move to Mr. Mark Budd. Mr. Mark Budd, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, would you please state your name and address for the record and wait to be sworn in?
Yes, it's Mark Budd, 11748 Driver Lane, Pilot Country Airport.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth to help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
Okay, my major concern is that the planned rezoning to residential is probably not compatible with the airport activities and the future residents of the proposed area. So as Mark Twalloven said, and Richard Garcia or Robert Garcia, this airport's been around for over 40 years, since the early 1970s. It is a public use transportation airport. There are guidelines online for land use compatibility zones for airports. And one example is from Shelton, Washington, that I found. And the purpose of these guidelines are to minimize the public's exposure to excessive noise and safety hazards that will result from incompatible land use development around airports, and to protect airports from potential encroachment by land uses that are not compatible with airport activities that may impair the planned development and use of that airport. And I get concerned about this because if some of you might remember, there's an airport over in the Clearwater area, Clearwater Air Park, and it was there for a long time, and then the communities sprouted up around it, and soon they had a nightmare of a problem with the communities trying to basically put them out of business. And there were vandalism problems and all kinds of things going on that were very bad for that airport. And I don't want to see something like that happen with our airport. And you talk about the Televerde, the recent subdivision that west to the northwest of Pilot Country right now, that sprung up over the last few years. That is actually in the traffic pattern of the airport, and we do get noise complaints from them. And I understand that they were supposed to also have a sales disclosure with respect to people coming in there about the airport operations, and that this airport has been here a long time. And as far as I understand, that has not happened. So, you know, I have that concern as well. I have a concern about the size of these dwellings and the density of the dwelling, and that is even compatible with the surrounding area. Guidelines, the land.
Mr. Budd, your time is up. Thank you very much for your comment. Following person we have signed up to speak on this item is Mr. Matthew Wallace. Mr. Wallace, are you on?
Yes, can you hear me now?
Yes, Mr. Wallace, would you please provide your full name and your address for the record, and the clerk will swear you in.
Sure thing. Apologies for the audio issues before. My name is Matthew Wallace. I've resided at 11550 Pilot Country Drive for the last 17 years.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth to help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
All right. I'm basically going to reiterate what most folks have said, but I want to stress, I want to help stress the fact that we are concerned about this. Everybody starts out with the best of intentions with these things, but what we decide on now doesn't necessarily dictate what happens in the future. People can sign a disclosure and move in, and then they don't like the noise, so they're going to complain about it. And we've seen encroachment in all the other airports around here over time. So I would encourage us in Pasco to think long-term and think wisely about how we do compatible zoning. As you said, the 2010 census said there were 228,000 households in Pasco, housing units, but we only have 3 airports. So, we don't really have a housing issue. We have an airport issue. And as a very small minority, being 3 airports, I would just like you to keep that in mind. Basically, I have a question that this may be inconsistent zoning. The Florida statutes 330 through 333 have talked about zoning near the airport, and I'm not sure, this may be a case there. The other issue is impairing the value of this asset. And I'm not just talking about economically. Mark Twalhoven talked about the economic aspect of it. But during disaster relief, this airport is used for law enforcement, for medical purposes. When President Bush went for his reelection and he was driving a bus through Florida, his rapid response team parked their helicopter here. So we provide a lot of value to this area beyond just straight economic value. And I'm also actually concerned for these up to 120 residents or families that would move in here. When you greenlight this, if you do, and I please hope that you don't, you're helping the developer, but the resident is going to move in, they're going to settle in, and then they're going to hear these airplanes. And even if they sign the disclosure, we can't control their response to that. So that's my commentary here, and I yield back any time I might have.
Okay, well, thank you. Is there anyone else, Denise?
I'm going to try once again. I don't believe he's on, but I'm just going to try once again for Richard Budd. Is Richard Budd on?
I do not see him, Denise.
Okay, thank you so much. So that was it, Mr. Chair.
Can we have the applicant back to respond to some of these?
Sure. We can have Cindy Terrapini and her team, Paul Skidmore and Lori Katzman back on, please, to answer questions.
Thank you, Ms. Hernandez. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members. I think what you have here is what you all do with a lot, which is balancing property rights, the property rights of the applicant, the property owners, the Campbells, who have lived there for generations. And actually the Campbells sold the Pilot Country Estates property to that developer. So you're balancing the property rights of the Campbells and the developer of the site with other properties in the area. We are doing everything possible that we can to make our project compatible. For example, we are not proposing any commercial uses, which many people think is incompatible with residential. The entire project will be residential. The size of the lot and the value of the homes, the size of the lot and the value of the homes are really not relative to your discussion in terms of reducing property value. It's residential use next to residential use, and not even right next to each other, but separated by a substantial buffer of the wetland between the two properties. And then I would also say the trend generally, as you all know, and you've seen this, and you see this in all of the major projects, the Connertons to the south of you, Cypress Preserve to the south of 52, all have 40-foot lots, as do many other projects throughout Pasco County. The difference is that's a major an MPD where they have a mix of lot sizes. This project is only 43 acres, so it didn't make sense to do an MPD and go through that process just for one land use type, which the staff had supported. With regard to meeting the FAA, we have already applied to FAA to meet those requirements, and we will comply with whatever FAA's requirements are. And I would finally note 2 things in the documents that Mr. Twalhaven provided. Number 1, he provided me a traffic pattern depiction. I think it might have been in your packet as well. Within this, the traffic pattern is not just this small 43 acres, but also Pasco Trails to the east, Connerton south of 52, and the Talavera subdivision to the northwest. So yes, development is coming to this part of Pasco County, and we're asking to balance that, and we're asking you to approve a residential use that will have less impact on all the surrounding area. We could have put almost 600,000 square feet of commercial. We chose not to do that. We thought residential was a better use. So again, we I hope you won't penalize us for maybe Talavera's bad behavior. If that's true, I really don't know. I am telling you as the applicant and as the representative of the developer, that they will include a disclosure in their sales contract. And people will be made aware of that issue. And then folks will decide if they want to live in this subdivision or not. It will be entirely their choice, just as it's their choice whether they live on a 1 acre lot, a 500-acre lot, or within this project. That's why we have a variety of lot sizes and lot styles and residential styles, because everyone has a slightly different goal as to where they want to live. And the trend lately, as you all have noted, I'm sure you've seen it in many of your projects, is to have less lot and less yard to mess around with, but a house that you can enjoy, and maybe a pool, but anyway, a smaller lot, but a nice house to enjoy. So I think I would just respectfully ask for your approval. We're not doing anything different than is not found in the general area and is not found throughout Pasco County. And we do think that residential use on this project, next to the residential use of Pilot Country Estates, is a compatible land use. Thank you very much.
Do we have any questions from the dais? Amy?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just still having heartburn about the 40-foot lots in this area. I mean, again, it's on the north side of 52. I don't know. I just think we're opening up Pandora's box and all these. I mean, everything up there on that corridor on 41 north of 52 is going to be coming in for these 40-foot lots in the future. I don't know. I mean, is there any? I haven't seen a layout, so I don't know. Maybe that's 120 40-foot lots on the property. I don't know the answer to that, but I don't see this as a compatible use, and I think that, you know, as I look back at the criteria, you know, for the approval of the rezoning, I mean, the very first, it's consistent with the existing land use pattern in the area. I don't see this as being consistent with the existing land use pattern in the area.
Thank you, whoever you are.
I would agree, Jamie. I'm struggling with that as well. I have no issue at all with houses going in. None at all. I struggle with that size lot as well there.
Yeah.
Like I said, I have no issue at all with houses going there. I think that's perfectly fine, but I don't know, it just seems small.
Yeah, one of the reasons that I ask about the style of the home is because typically 1-story garden style homes are attractive to retirees. 2-story or they tend to attract families. Right. And I think you're a lot more likely to get objectors if they're 1-story. And I'm just very sensitive. I saw what happened to West Pasco Airport, you know, and that was, in my mind, a shame that we let that get away from us, meaning the county, because the economic impact of an airport is pretty wide and pretty important. You can see how it affects Brooksville, for example, and the problem is that if you have somebody sign an agreement saying that they understand there's an airport there, then they sell their house to the next person. They haven't signed that agreement. You know, I don't know how you insulate the airport from objectors. That's my problem, and I would just hate to see something that's been there for 40 years be run out of town, so to speak, because we're letting the wrong type of development go adjacent to it. And I'm definitely a property rights person. I like to see people to be able to develop their property to highest and best use, but I also have to be concerned about people that are already there, already have their investment. And so I'm sort of like you in terms of the development. I think development is going to be good there. I just don't know if this is the right kind of development. And I'd almost rather see offices there than little houses. But No, any comment, Chris?
No, I agree
Your
with everything
perspective?
that y'all said. There's nothing further from me.
What about anybody else from the board would like to comment? Roberto, do you have any comment?
No, I think it's enough with what you have mentioned, and I can agree with the three of you.
Yeah, I don't know, David Goldstein. I don't know if there's any way you can. Yeah. I think.
Mr. Chair, I lost connection. I can't hear the chair.
Okay, can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. Go ahead.
David, somebody in the background was talking. I don't know if there's any way to insulate the airport legally from future objections. I don't think what they've suggested goes far enough, and I don't know if you can go far enough. But I think it's imperative that we protect the airport. I think it's a valuable asset to the broader West Pasco community, and I think the last thing we need to do is another airport. Noise coming from. Okay. Did you hear me, David?
Yeah, I heard you. So the answer is it's very difficult to fully insulate another development from objections. I mean, even if they put a deed restriction that says that you're aware of it, yes, that's evidence that you're aware of it, but we live in a country where people can speak all they want. I mean, so they can make a call to their commissioners, they can make calls to the FAA, they can make calls to whatever agency they want to and file complaints, and there's nothing really we can do to stop them. Yes, we can present the deed restriction or contract saying you knew about it, but it still may force the part of the country to respond to the complaint. So the answer to your question is, I think a deed restriction is some evidence that the owner had knowledge when they moved in that it was going to be there, but it doesn't stop them from filing a complaint. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does, definitely. Okay. Penny, do you have any other suggestions along those lines? Cindy, can you hear me?
Am I live? Yes. Can you hear me all now?
Yeah.
Cindy.
I hear you now.
Again, Cindy Terrapini. Again, I think we're doing the best that we possibly can with this disclosure, and I agree with Mr. Goldstein. You know, someone gets that disclosure, it's included in their sales contract, they know what they're purchasing. Someone comes there and they see the airport and they decide they don't want to live next to that or in close proximity to that, then that's their choice. I would also point out, under the current zoning, we could come back in with a conditional use for multifamily, which would have a significantly larger number of units and significantly larger traffic impact. Lots more people who could object, and that is not really what the developer, wants to do. We don't really think that that's the best site for multifamily. It's not at an intersection. It's not really in the urban core. So, single family use compared to what could go on to that site, I guess I'm asking you to weigh that and say that, there is a significant amount of commercial that could be built. It's already got the right zoning, doesn't need any zoning approvals, just go through the regular site plan process. However, at this location, not being at an intersection, we really felt like single family detached was a better use. The lot size, again, is really just a function of what's happening everywhere in Pasco County. And it's happening just to the south of 52. To say that it's not happening right now north of 52 is it is a fact, but what it's telling you is that growth, and you all know this, it's moving north along 41 and it's moving in north of 52 now. You have all those developments along 41, the large multifamily MPDs that are beginning to be not totally, but mostly built out or bought by developers. And so development is moving north.
Mr. Chair,
these larger homes.
Mr. Chair, I'm a little concerned that the applicant's going beyond the scope of your question. And effectively expanding her rebuttal time. So is your
Okay,
question answered or not?
that sounds good. I think you, all you need to say, and I don't think we have any other questions here. Do we? Anybody have any questions? If there are no questions, then I'll listen to a motion. I'm listening.
Again, it's Jamie Girardi, and I'll speak on this. I mean, again, I'm not necessarily opposed to residential use. I mean, there's no question there's residential moving north on 41. Again, my same, or what I've said it multiple times before, was that the problem that I have with it is just the size of the lot that is proposed. I mean, you're talking about 40-foot lots. If this was something coming in that was, a 60-foot lot or something that seemed more compatible to what was in the area on the other side of 41, I think this is something that I could support or I would be in favor of. However, just the size of the lots just don't seem compatible. So I'm going to make a motion to recommend denial based on, I think we have to include a recommendation condition, correct?
Right.
Condition 1, the proposed change is not consistent with the existing land use pattern in the area.
Okay. We have a motion. We have a second.
I second the motion.
Okay, that's Roberto Saez.
Correct.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on the motion? All in favor of the motion signify by roll call.
Jamie Girardi,
Aye.
Roberto Size,
Aye.
Christopher Poole,
Aye.
Chris Williams,
Aye.
Chairman Charles Gray.
Aye.
So that was a motion to deny.
Right.
Thank you. Based on number 1.
Right.
Thank you. Okay, the following item is PC6, and I'm going to queue that up. That item is going to be presented by Viviana Martinez. There is a gentleman, Mr. Michael Domagala, and I apologize if I did not pronounce that properly, who is at the kiosk to speak on that item. In addition, the applicants on that item, the applicant team consists of Barbara Wilhite, Mike Lawrence, and Mike Razor, and I believe Trent Stevenson on that as well. So I'm going to queue up the presentation on that item, and Viviana should just be coming up soon.
All right. Thank you.
I also do want to mention that on this item, you are sitting as the local planning agency. Thank you.
I'm sorry, Denise, but I don't see Viviana on.
Okay, you don't see Viviana on. All right, so.
Sorry, I'm on
There
now.
she is. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Sorry, this is the first time I present virtually, so just be patient with me. All right, so good afternoon, Viviana Martinez, Planning and Development Department. Item PC6, PDD 200586 is a large-scale comprehensive plan amendment in the name of CPL 2002 Colony Road. The project proposes to change the existing land use from Res 3 residential 3 dwelling units per acre to Res 6 residential 6 dwelling units per acre on approximately 37.77 acres of property with associated sub-area policies. Currently, the subject properties are vacant and undeveloped, and the subject properties are in west central Pasco County. They are located southeastern corner of Colony Road and Fairwinds Road intersection, about half a mile north of State Road 52. This is a map showing the existing residential Res 3 future land use designation. And this one just shows the Res 6 future land use designation. The conducted transportation needs assessment shows that there's an expected and reasonable increase in peak hour trips with the comp plan amendment to Res 6. However, the TNA also shows that there's adequate capacity to accommodate these additional trips. And with that, staff recommends that the Planning and Development Department, that the local planning agency finds this amendment consistent with the comprehensive plan and to recommend approval to the Board of County Commissioners.
All right. Any questions from the dais? Nothing?
I actually do, Mr. Chairman. I'm
Right.
trying to have Wi-Fi issues here, but this is asking for Res 6, but there's a restriction on this for 4.4 units per. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay.
Okay, on this item, there's an applicant team that consists of Barbara Wilhite, Mike Lawrence, Mr. Stevenson, and Mike Razor. Would the team like to state your name and address for the record and be sworn in, and then consider whether you want to leave your time after Mr. Damagala speaks?
Hi, this is Barbara Wilhite. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, I have Mike Lawrence on the phone with me. We had to join together on the phone because it's my client, the owner of the property. We had to join together on the phone because he wasn't able to get onto the WebEx. But my team is ready to be sworn, and well, if you want to wait to see if they speak, my preference is we have not received any comments other than we received one call from our notices, and Mr. Lawrence spoke to that person, so we really don't know what the concerns of the speaker that wants to speak from the kiosk, what they might be. So I think it'd be best to defer, but I'd be happy to swear myself in, and then we'll see if any team members need to participate. We can swear them in at the time, or whatever the pleasure of the chair and the clerk is.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay. All right. So we're going to defer and we'll go to the.
Okay, so we'll have Mr. Michael Damagala at the kiosk, please.
All right, am I ready? Yep, so go ahead and swear in. All right, my name is Michael Damagala. My property address that I own is 12928 Buckhorn Drive. My property butts up to the back end of this, or the south end of this particular property.
Can you please raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
All right, go ahead.
I'm here representing about a dozen neighbors that are just scattered around the property in question here. We do have some pretty big concerns. My particular property on my dead end, along with a few of my neighbors, actually butts up to a large retention pond. Every summer, this retention pond several times does spill out over to the back. And this particular property we're talking about is really more of a marshy land sort of collection area. Kids drive ATVs through there and whatnot. It's kind of like the hangout spot in the middle of a neighborhood that's been established for 30 plus years. It seems odd to want to just jam this into like the middle of an old area. Initially, nobody wants it, but we understand that things happen, and we're concerned about what is the water plan for this particular lot? Where is all the water going to go? The houses that butt up to this lot on Barney Road, the water already gets within feet of some of the back of these people's screen rooms. So we want to know what that's going to be, what it's going to look like. Our lift station's going to go in. This whole property is a lot of wildlife area. Are we going to be looking at them ripping? Because we have like a scenic view on our side. It's just, it's water, it's woods, it's birds, it's ducks. Are they going to be ripping all the trees out? Are we going to have some type of buffer zone in between these this developed area versus our development? Or are we going to be staring at the back of other neighbors' houses in 2 years? That affects property values. Also, too, the main road that comes in and out of this place is Colony Road. That's going to be the direct access to State Road 52 for this particular development. That is a very thin road. There's a older person's community there that a lot of people, wheelchairs and stuff, go up and down this road. And what the main concern is that, is there any plan to put a sidewalk in for safety? And there's no eastbound access. You can't come off of Colony, turn onto State Road 52 to go eastbound. The only way to do that is to cut through a small surface street on our development to get to our development's main entrance, which has a break on State Road 52, so you can make a left and go eastbound. So you're talking up to 160 family units. That's 300 plus cars a day. my development already backs up 4, 5, 6 cars deep in the morning going to work. Is this another 100 cars that are going to figure out, oh, we make a left here and we don't have to go, make the big U-turn on 52 going westbound first to turn around. And then the third concern is the neighborhood kids. We have a Dollar General at our entrance. We get a lot of neighborhood kids that already play back there. They cut through our backyards quite often. It's just a handful of them. It's not too big of a deal, but you jam in 162 houses, plenty of kids are going to be back there. Are we going to be, having to deal with all of the kids coming in and out, wanting to cut to the Dollar General and cut to the main roads and stuff? Is there going to be some type of walling units that go up to maybe separate it and deter people from that? So, in closing, it's just a lot of concerns. Done right, maybe it's okay, but if it's not done right, we're going to have.
Your time is up, sir. Thank you very much for your comments.
Okay, thank you very much. And answers from the developer there on that, and see where we go from there. Thank you for coming.
Yes. Hi, again, this is Barbara Wilhite. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Do we have anybody else?
There's no one else signed to speak on this, signed up to speak on this item.
All right, Barbara, go ahead.
Sure thing. Barbara Wilhite, 6327 Grand Boulevard, Newport Richey, Florida, 34652, and I have been sworn. We are at the land use stage of this process. We have an MPUD zoning coming forward, but at this point, you're sitting as the LPA to review the land use. And we are proposing to change the land use from Res 3 to Res 6, which is the same land use that the speaker has for the property that he owns. So the property to the south is Res 6. We have property to the west that is ROR that allows 24 units per acre and zone C2. So with that, the land use that we're proposing, as staff has recommended, is absolutely consistent with the comprehensive plan. And we would ask you to move forward and recommend approval of the land use. Now, that doesn't mean that the speaker doesn't have good questions and concerns. I do have my team on board. It is not necessarily the best time to be talking about site plan issues when we're just at the land use stage. But certainly we have a traffic engineer, Mike Razor, that can talk about the review and what he knows about reviewing the roads. And we also have our project engineer, Trent Stevenson, that's also on, that can talk about drainage. And I know the client is with me as well on the phone. So I think I'm going to go ahead and if the commission doesn't have any specific questions, I'm going to go ahead and have Mike Razor talk a little bit about what he knows about the roads and the transportation review. And then we'll have Trent talk about drainage.
All right, Barbara, I think that's a good idea. I'd like to be able to, even though we're at the land approval stage, I do think it would be nice to be able to respond to the person's questions and give him some peace of mind in that regard. So if we can get your experts online, why don't we do that? What do you want to have first? The traffic person, water person?
Mike Razor, please. Mike, you gotta mute yourself.
All right, can everyone hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. You're going to speak
For the
about
record, Michael Razor. I have been sworn. I'm a registered professional traffic engineer. Prepared the transportation needs assessment and the timing and phase-it analysis for the subject project. It's in specific response to the gentleman's concern. The intersection of Colony Road and State Road 52 currently is restricted to right in, right out movement from Colony onto 52 and vice versa. However, there is a U-turn opportunity with a U-turn ability just west of Colony Road. The entrance to that turn lane is only 50 feet west of Colony Road. So I fully anticipate that any traffic that would be destined to eastbound 52 would occur via a right turn from Colony Road onto 52, followed by the 50 feet down to the turn lane to make the U-turn maneuver, rather than the circuitous route through the neighborhood, which involves multiple turns on front-loaded, subdivision type streets. Further, as I had mentioned, we did the timing and phasing analysis, which gets into some of the details. Colony Road was identified to operate acceptably in regard to capacity and level of service, both for the near-term and the long-term horizons. And Colony Road is also subject to future Pasco County improvement to a 4-lane road, collector road, which based on the PD&E study, which was done prior to the 6 laning of State Road 52, I did identify direct left turns to and from Colony Road to and from State Road 52. So in the future, when that does become a county collector roadway, I would anticipate that the median opening would be relocated to Colony Road from Shadowwood, with some type of closure or restriction at Shadowwood to our east. With that, if there's any further questions, of course, I'd be happy to answer those.
And when did you anticipate that would happen?
At the current time, I do not believe that is a scheduled improvement. I can take perhaps county staff has some further details on that particular roadway project.
Okay. All right. Is there anybody from staff that can answer that question?
I don't believe there's anybody from department that can answer that question immediately, but we can definitely look into it and we can reach out and let the applicant, or not the applicant, but the buyer know.
So you'll respond to Ben? Okay.
Yes.
And you have his contact information?
Yes.
And now, do you have somebody, Barbara, to speak to the water issue? Drainage?
Yes. Hey, this is Trent Stevenson.
I do. That's Trent Stevenson. If he could talk to both the drainage as well as I think they have a plan for the property and they can speak about that adjacency to this neighbor and what they propose for the south end of this project.
Hi. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Hi, Trent Stevenson, 505 East Jackson Street, Tampa, Florida, 33602. I'm with Level Up Consulting. With respect to the drainage, obviously we have to go through and analyze the county model and take into consideration historical drainage patterns.
Mr. Chair, can we confirm he was sworn?
I was
yes.
sworn.
Okay. All right.
You have been sworn? Okay.
Yes. So.
All right, go ahead.
So we have to take into consideration historical drainage patterns, and we cannot, by county as well as the water management district, we are required to uphold those drainage patterns and not adversely impact any adjacent properties upstream or downstream of our property. We recognize there is a wetland in the southeast corner of the site, which we are not proposing any impact to, as well as a large proposed drainage pond along the southern end of the property that would provide at least a 200-foot buffer from any adjacent property to our property line. And then as we continue to go through the site plan process, we will work with
You were doing so well.
Yeah, you're lagging, sir.
Let's give it a minute. Maybe you'll get to come back.
So that we hope it will not adversely impact. I'm sorry. Basically, we'll still. Of course.
Trent, you hear us?
So,
We're losing you, so we lost a lot of what you
so
said.
I do also have Mike Lawrence on the line with me, client and owner of the property. Mike, do you have anything to add that you can fill in where Trent got lost somewhere?
Hello, this is Mike Lawrence, 8806 Eagle Watch Drive, Riverview, Florida, and I have been sworn. my partner and I own this property, and we have worked with it diligently to achieve a net zero concern for the water issues that we have. We're cognizant of the wetland, the large wetland that's on the southeast corner that Trent mentioned, and we're planning to make the pond the correct depth so that it would be it would hold all of the water that typically flows into the area right now. When you look at this, you can see that it's a very large pond, and we did that in response to what we knew to be the existing case. Now, we still have to go through an exhaustive process by SwiftMud to get them to approve what we're planning to do. And certainly they take into accord what we're going to do with drainage as it relates to everybody else. We are not allowed, under any circumstance, for water to leave our site and go elsewhere. So that's all I can say to them, to the people who are concerned. And it's a legitimate concern because they said that they've been flooding forever. Well, I'm pretty sure that will be totally stopped whenever you see the size of the pond we're proposing. Does that address the question?
Mike, where do you plan to put is your pond going to be along the southern boundary?
The pond is all the way across the southern boundary, from side to side, and it goes back up into the property. I don't remember exactly the dimension, but it goes back up in there, and then it has a design depth to handle all of the water that would go from our site, typically anywhere else. There's one other pond in the northeast corner in order to be sure that there would be no water that escapes onto the corner of Colony and Fairwinds. But the larger pond down at the bottom is the one that takes, in case the wetland overflows or in case any of that should happen, it eliminates that issue.
Okay.
Thank you, Mike.
We have met with the staff on several occasions and have talked to them about various buffering ways that we're going to buffer the site all the way around, and we plan to do all of that in accord with the county specifications.
Okay. My hope and suggestion is that maybe you can, as the representative of the people that live out in that area, if you could keep the respondent, advised as you move along, and because these are issues that we really don't address effectively here on this board. We're talking about our main approach is this an appropriate use for the property? And so I want to get back to that, but I do like to be able to try to answer questions from the public when they have concerns about property that's going to be developed next to them. So, I think we've tried to do that, and hopefully we're moving in the right direction. So, are there any other questions from the board here? From any of us? No, sir.
Barbara, I think you're muted.
Barbara, you're muted.
Yes, I was actually talking to my client there. You just see me talking, but not to you guys. Yes, we have his address. I wrote it down. I looked him up. We will reach out and make contact as you suggest as we move forward with the project. And best thing to do is to communicate and let him know, what we're proposing and where. I think we've answered the question what his adjacency will be. What will be behind him will be a pond, and there's already existing wetland.
Okay, very good.
We'll have a neighborhood meeting.
That's a great idea. Okay, fantastic. So, Roberto, anything from your end?
No, I'm fine.
Okay. All right, so if there's no further questions,
I'll make a motion to approve item PC6.
we have a motion from Mr. Poole to approve item P6.
I'll second.
I second.
We have a second from Jamie. And is there any further discussion? All in favor of the motion signify by roll call.
Jamie Girardi,
Aye.
Roberto Size,
Aye.
Christopher Poole,
Aye.
Chris Williams,
Aye.
Chairman Charles Gray.
Aye.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Planning Commission members, we'll now move on to item P8. Item P8 will be presented by Christina Costa. I do want to mention that on item P8, the following applicants are signed up. It's Barbara Wilhite, Steve Henry, Roy Mazer, George Ortega. We also have some folks that are that should be on WebEx, and Patricia Herbert and Lane Mendelson. And there is a gentleman by the name of Gregory Williams, who's at the kiosk to speak on this item. In addition, there is an email that was requested that it be read into record on this item. So just wanted to give you that information, and I'm going to queue up the presentation and have that to you in a second.
Okay.
All right.
This is Christina Acosta from Planning and Development. Item P8 is PDD 20-7484, multifamily high density district to multifamily high density district with amended deed restriction in the name of Wesley Chapel Owner LLC. The project is located on the east side of Old Pasco Road, approximately 600 feet north of Oakley Boulevard. On August 6, 2019, the BCC adopted petition number 7398, changing the zoning of the subject site from R2 residential low density district to multiple family high density district with deed restriction. The applicant proposes to rezone the property in order to amend the previously recorded deed restriction associated with the site, which restricted the property to 210 single-family attached units and prohibited apartments. The applicant has voluntarily agreed to an amended deed restriction limiting the residential development on the property to a maximum of 210 townhomes or 400 multifamily apartments and 100 townhomes. And here is a look at the surrounding zoning. And the future land use is mixed use for the area. And access will be from Old Pasco Road. This comes to you with a recommendation of approval, and I am here to answer questions.
Okay. Any questions? Okay.
So that, I mean, it's already zoned MF, so the only difference is it would allow apartments, correct? As an option, anyway.
So it has already been approved for multifamily use, but there was a deed restriction limiting the site to only townhomes with a maximum of 210 units. So this is because they want to amend the deed restriction, they're having to come back through a full rezoning process and notice all the neighbors.
So again, their intent is not the townhomes, it's how many apartment units?
Well, the intent is to do either 210 townhomes, which is what they initially had the approval for and what the initial deed restriction was allowing. So either that or 400 apartments and 100 townhomes. So it could still go either way. It's just to loosen the restrictions on the site.
I have a question to Chris on, if we're talking about an increasing capacity on the property to 400 multifamily and 100 townhome, school capacity issues related to that increased density?
No, not in that area, just because Quail Hollow Elementary capacity and close proximity to the new middle and high school. that we just built. And really, if it's 400 apartments versus 200 townhomes, there's not a whole lot of difference in student generation rates for that.
Okay.
Well, additional comments on this one would be, and might be more to the applicant, but traffic. I mean, we heard that just before, and we're talking about PC3, that the widening of Old Pasco is not intended to 4-lane until 27, 28 timeframe. You know, the potential of increasing that capacity and putting that many more cars on the road there. You know, for example, there was just a pedestrian death just down Old Pasco Road from this intersection yesterday, I think Wednesday, as a matter of fact. So I have a concern with the additional potential traffic impacts. And then I do know, as some of the opposition is pointed out, that there are significant flooding issues in that area that would seem to be exacerbated by increasing density.
Okay. Anything else, Chris?
No, that's my concern, sir.
All right. Anything?
Yeah, I guess the only question I had in going through this was the original deed restriction. It looks like the original deed restriction was placed on the property in 2019 is when it was approved. I guess, I don't know, can somebody kind of touch on what the history? Was that something that the board made them do? Was that something that the developer chose to do at the time and then now they're coming back to revise it? I guess, what was the history there?
Mr. Chairman, I can speak to that.
Okay. Go ahead.
Barbara Wilhite, 6327 Grand Boulevard, Newport, Florida, 34652. I have been sworn. The history on that is, as we brought this property forward through rezoning last year, client's intention was to do townhomes. And there was a discussion amongst the board about apartments. And so last year, there wasn't a lot of clarity about the board's direction on apartments. And so because of that, and because the client was intending to do townhomes, we could avoid the whole apartment discussion. I recommended that the client do a deed restriction for townhomes. As time goes forward, we have a market that's much changing as we speak. We have a world that's changing as we speak. And we also have more clarity from the board. The board changed in February of this year. The board, and you're going to hear more about this from Mr. Pitas because he's got a presentation to you, but the board met in a work session and said they were concerned about the 54-56 corridor. And so we have some more clarity on that regarding apartments, and you'll hear from Mr. Pitas about what the board did at their last meeting. Also, since that time, this planning commission and approved south of here, recommended approval for apartments in the mixed-use land use across from the Grove, and the board approved unanimously. The chairman was sick that day, but the board unanimously approved an apartment project, apartment and townhomes south of here. So it's with that history that I bring forward this rezoning to remove that restriction. I do have I think we should wait to talk about traffic and flooding until we hear from the residents. But from a land use perspective, this is a mixed use land use. It allows up to 32 units per acre. We're proposing, and I would like to say that as my client has learned more about the property relative to a potential apartment site, we can drop our request to just 350 multifamily apartment units or the 210 townhomes. So we would just revise that to be 350 as opposed to the 400 and 100. So it's either be 350 apartments or 210 townhomes. But at 350 units, it's 7.3 units per acre. The county has planned this area, and I think what we're going to see because I've read all the correspondence, is that we have existing homes, but we have a county plan as to how their vision is for the growth of this area. We have the schools that you hear have capacity for this use. We have a new interchange plan to the north, overpass interchange, which will be constructed in the next couple of years. The county is prioritizing improvements to Old Pasco Road. You heard there's a safety improvement that's imminent. Capital budget in the CIP for this year, next year. And I know that they are working diligently to go through the process so that they can widen all of the road to 4 lanes. I guess my point is that this is going to be a major north-south corridor parallel to an interstate, and this property sits in between what will be 2 interchanges. The property immediately to the north is allowed for townhomes and apartments. The property zoned to the south is zoned MF that allows townhome and apartments. We have apartments to the south in Pasco Woods. We have other MUs that are allowed for townhome and apartments. So this is the county's plan. Growth follows infrastructure, and this is the county, and growth follows the land use plan. And that's exactly what we have here. There's nothing different regarding what we're asking for the uses on this property than the property directly to the north. They're allowed apartments or townhomes. I don't know that my client will do apartments or town, which one he'll choose, but he does own the property and should be able to have uses on his property that are consistent with the other property owners directly to the south, to the north and the south. I'll reserve to talk about traffic and flooding. Let's go ahead and listen to the residents. And then we can have Steve Henry talk about traffic. He knows a lot about what's going on. You heard him speaking to the item before to the south on Old Pasco Road. And we have Ray Mazur from WRA, who knows the property very, very, very well from a drainage standpoint.
Okay, let's hear from the people that have questions.
Mr. Chair, we do have Mr. Gregory Williams at the kiosk.
Okay.
We did have Miss Patricia Herbert signed up to speak, but she's not on. We have, I will check to see if Lane Mendelson is on WebEx. Is Lane Mendelson on?
No, they are not.
Okay, so we have Gregory Williams at the kiosk. Would you like to have him
Yes,
speak? And then I also have an email to read into the record.
Gotcha. Okay.
Mr. Williams, would you please provide your name and address for the record, and please wait to be sworn in. Thank you.
Yes, Gregory S. Williams, 6641 Old Pasco Road, Wesley Chapel. I'm an adjacent property owner within 350 feet of the proposed development. I'm a neighborhood organizer, non-compensated.
Can you please, sir, would you please wait to be sworn in? Thank you, sir.
Can you please raise your right hand?
Raise your right hand, please. Thank you.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth to help you God?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
So this is concerning petition 7484. At the previous zoning commission meeting, whether they were going to do detached or attached garages on the subject parcel, the representative of the petitioner stated to the planners, the community, that no apartments would be built on the subject land parcel. Subsequently, BOCC approved for attached garages. We've then received notice that the development permit was going to be issued to construct the 210 townhouses. Now comes before you the petitioner in the 11th hour seeking to reduce the number of townhouses to 100 units and add 400 multifamily apartments. This is unacceptable and perceived by myself and our neighbors as chicanery on the part of the developer to catch the neighborhood off guard and sneak in additional dwelling units to increase land development profits at the long-term expense of neighbors, the neighborhood, and the environment. A petition has been circulating, 59 signed petitions thus far from local property owners, neighbors from Quail Hollow and Wesley Chapel Acres is in possession of the planning department. I have another 43 signed petitions that I will be sending in tomorrow. That brings the total to 102 and counting. We do have, it's clear, read the petitions. The neighbors do not want multifamily apartments. We'd be okay with the 210 townhouses. Let's build it. Let's go with that. But we also have to address the seasonal flooding. It's a major concern. The Grove has already increased the flooding. 400 more apartments is certainly going to add to that. We don't need any more apartments. The neighbors, the property owners have spoken. We have Pasco Woods, 200 apartments. The park at Wesley Chapel just opened, 248 multifamily apartments. The petitioner's request is more than the sum of these. We trust that the Pasco County Planning Commission will have the courage, common sense, and integrity to push back against the developer for the sake of doing what is right for the neighborhood, the local community, and the existing adjacent property owners. This last-minute attempt, 11th hour attempt by the developer to increase the population density and land use has not gone unnoticed. Pasco County's motto of open spaces, vibrant places, that's the motto, and we deserve it to stay that way. We need the Planning Commission's protection and ask the Planning Commission to deny this petition for the construction of multifamily apartments. Please, it's very important. We're all long-term residents. We have vested property rights. We do not want any more apartments in the neighborhood. There's enough now. Thank you.
You. All right, do we have any questions for the one person that spoke in opposition who has some 100 signatures? Any questions? All right, so any comments from the applicant then?
Would you like me to read the email first?
Yes, okay, go ahead. Sure.
Would you please time me? 'Cause this email has 3 minutes as well. So I will start now. Thank you.
Okay, go ahead.
This is Rebecca Darland, 28823 Walker Drive, Wesley Chapel, Florida, 33544. Rezoning petition 7484, addition of high-density residential. I oppose approval of high-density apartments proposed to the site on Old Pasco Road. I am a homeowner in close proximity and enjoy a low-density zoning. The proposed high-density residential development does not fit with the character of this neighborhood, which is predominant density. It is not consistent with dominant characteristics and not complementary. There are legitimate precedents of high-density development disrupting the enjoyment of established low-density residential owners because of impact to natural environment, water runoff, wildlife, increased population, guarantees increased crime, safety concerns for residential low-density neighborhood, traffic congestion. The infrastructure for roadways are not suitable. There is no infrastructure for public service, transit, sidewalks, services to this proposed high-density development. Traversing this area for local residents has seen an increase in accidents still unmitigated by improvements to roads. The ongoing road improvements will not be enough to support the additional population. There are legitimate fears from residents of declining market values due to economy now, and additional development of high-density apartments is typically historically known in many areas to further decrease surrounding low-density property value. Simply, residents don't want to look at development right near their own properties that resembles commercial and bring that increase of activity. There is no need for this change in density as new development of high-density apartments nearby have been completed and are not showing demand. There will be certain economic impacts forthcoming to increase available housing when foreclosure moratoriums are lifted as associated with recent COVID-19 pandemic and unemployment. Therefore, no case for additional housing seems valid to proceed at this time. The necessary improvements in infrastructure would be a burden on the county and local resident taxpayers. Thank you, Rebecca Darland.
All right. Okay, we're all set on that end of it? Okay.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Anything from the applicant?
I'll go ahead and let Steve Henry talk about traffic and Old Pasco Road, and then let's have Ray Mazur talk about drainage, and then I can come back and kind of sum things up for you.
Okay. We just got to make sure we get everybody in the time limit, that's all. Are they online?
Steve Henry's online.
There we go. Sorry about that. This is Steve Henry. I have been sworn, address 5023 West Laurel, Tampa 33607. So a couple things about Old Pasco Road. Based on recent counts that we've done out there, it is operating at an acceptable level of service. In addition to that, when you compare the trip generation between the 210 townhomes versus the 350 apartments, it's a difference of about 33 trips during the PM peak hour, which is about a 2% of the capacity of Old Pasco Road. So the increase in traffic associated with going from the townhomes to apartments is insignificant. And again, as we had indicated, there's currently a construction project ongoing at Old Pasco and Quail Hollow. There is safety improvements for this year, and then they're currently under design for the or programmed to design for the future 4-lane.
Lizzie,
That's it. Yes.
are you
Would you
finished
like
or?
to just- I think that was fine, Steve, unless the committee has any questions.
Any questions? No. Okay.
Well, I'll ask about the timing of the traffic counts. You said there are recent traffic counts done, Steve. What time frame are we talking about recent?
We did 3-day counts back May of last year. So prior to COVID, during school, 3-day counts on Old Pasco Road.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Roy Major here to speak to stormwater. I've not been sworn in.
Hear about stormwater? Flooding?
Yes, Roy, go ahead.
I need to be sworn in.
Okay. You raise your right hand.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth so help you God?
I do. Roy Major, 4260 West Lineball Avenue, Tampa, WRA Engineering. I'm a licensed professional engineer and a certified planner. I've been retained to discuss stormwater. We are well aware of the drainage pattern. There is a kind of hourglass-shaped wetland in the south central part of the site. That wetland receives water from the southern part of the site. It also receives water from the Groves development. As that wetland stages up, it then flows northeast down the right-of-way and into the natural channel and then takes it off to the northwest. We are well aware of that drainage pattern and are have the engineering understanding and capacity to design around that. And with that that knowledge, site will go through environmental resource permitting with the Southwest Florida Water Management District, as all developments of this type do, as well as we'll have to go through Pasco County for that approval through them. And so the primary drainage item here is that wetland receiving water, staging up, and then flowing northeast down the right-of-way into the natural channel. We're well aware of that and feel the project can accommodate that drainage pattern.
Okay. Henry? Okay. Barbara, do you have any final comments?
Sure. I would just say we're not sneaking anything in. I've explained, how this came to be. We made sure that this deed restriction came through a rezoning process, full notice, and 2 public hearings. So absolutely not trying to sneak anything in. We have given the right of way for this will be a 4-lane road, urban section of road. The right of way is all coming off of my client's property, much to our, that is not the norm. Usually it's split. The right of way is half from the one side and half from the other. This one has all the right of way coming from our side, so as not to impact the neighbors on the west side. So they won't have to give up their property as my client has done in connection with the zoning of his property. He's giving up, dedicating, donating all the right of way from our side. Don't want any more apartments, just really isn't a criteria for the decision you need to make. We look at it from a zoning and land use standpoint, and I think your staff's report very, very concise, very well done to explain what the zoning is, what the land use is, and why this is absolutely consistent with that.
Okay. We just ran out of time, so that's good timing. Any questions or comments from the board? You know, I guess the only concern I have is that, you know, I envisage, you know, a country kind of an area out there. You know, and if you put townhomes in it, you got residential property that's owned. You put apartments in it, you got transient people. I just don't know if it's compatible.
Yeah, I guess the only thing I'll add to that is, I mean, this is a unique piece of property. On one side, you've got what you're talking about, and on the other side, you've got the Grove that's starting to build out and starting, I mean, there's really the big push for the redevelopment there, and they're putting a lot of money in that development in and of itself. So it's different use on each side. South and east is the Grove, and the west and north is more rural. I really don't think that this is the place, but you know, maybe that lends itself to, if they go the apartment route, is there some way to connect it to the Grove? Not as part of that project, but tie it in. But again, it's probably not something that needs a stage as something, or it gets deferred to the development and the site plan stage. So
I could answer the question, Mr. Girardi. I can answer the question about the relationship to the Grove.
Sure.
We have an easement agreement between the Grove. I represent the Grove as well. And so we have an easement that allows us to have a connection, a vehicular connection and pedestrian connection between the projects. So the projects are working together. And the Grove is very excited about having our project and density to help them with their project. So yeah, there will be that connectivity. It's already thought of, already planned. There's a recorded easement to that effect.
Yeah. What are your thoughts, Chris?
Well, I think yeah, I'm a little bit concerned about the transient nature of, you know, putting 350 apartments there. I think 210 townhomes is already in the books. It's already approved use for that. I'd lean more towards that direction. You know, I assume that you know, the deed restriction or whatever is going to go with this would be revised to reflect the 350 apartments and all that, obviously, to take that into account. But I think the appropriate use, there is 210 townhomes that are already approved on that. I think that's the appropriate use for this property.
Chris?
I agree with Jamie. I don't have a big issue with changing this over. I mean, there's again, the Grove's there. You got the industrial park to the north. There's 4-lane road that's going to be dividing the less dense from this. So I don't have an issue.
And Roberto, any comments?
To be honest with you, I pass that area almost every single day. I live in Wesley Chapel, really close to that area. I cannot imagine the nightmare to put 350 new families in that area at this point. I cannot support it. I think what is approved already is okay, but I don't think it will be a good idea another apartment complex in there.
Okay. Anything else from anybody on the board? Okay, if not, do we have a motion? Do we have an emotion?
I can move a motion to deny.
All right, so we have a motion to deny, and do we have a second?
I'll second.
Can I get the motion maker to generally state his reasons so we can cite the appropriate reasons if this goes to the board?
So the reasons basically is, I'm sorry, I have some feedback in the sound. Hello?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Roberto. Say it again.
Again, again, as I mentioned to you guys, my main reason is the number of units and the traffic impact in that area. I hear that the traffic was, a study was done in May of last year. I understand that, but just at the corner, so Old Pasco Road and 54, there are new apartment complex that are in the process to get it done, and that was before, that was after that analysis. So my main concern is traffic and number of families, of course, services, schools, all is part of that.
So would that be item number 1?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, if you could just give staff some, I'm not sure it's just item number 1. I just wanted him to state his reasons so staff could cite the appropriate sections of the code, but I don't think that would be limited to number 1.
I'm not looking at the list.
So may I read the list? I'm trying to share my screen to show the planning commission members the list of review considerations. May I read it because I'm having a very difficult time and I do have the IT people next to me and it's still not working.
Okay.
May I do that, Mr. Chair? So, the reasons are the existing land use pattern, whether the approval of the request would result in a creation of an isolated district unrelated to adjacent and nearby districts, whether the existing district boundaries are illogically drawn in relation to existing conditions on the property proposed for the change, whether changed or changing conditions make passage of the proposed amendment necessary. And of course, you would put that in the negative if you know, whether the proposed change will affect living conditions in the immediate and surrounding neighborhood, whether there is adequate access from a standard roadway to the site, and whether the proposed change will create or excessively increase traffic congestion or otherwise affect traffic safety, whether the proposed change might result in the reduction of light or air to adjacent properties or areas, whether the proposed change might result in lower property values in adjacent areas, whether the property as rezoned could be developed in a manner which would comply with other existing county and state regulations governing development, whether the proposed change would result in or act as a deterrent to the improvement or development of adjacent property in accordance with the existing regulations, whether the property for which the subject of the proposed change is a suitable location, a suitable site or location for the uses available under a proposed zoning district, whether certain portions of the property are not suitable for development under the proposed zoning classification, whether adequate public facilities are available to the site, including but not limited to water and sewer facilities, whether the property is developable under the proposed zoning classification without appropriate public facilities, including but not limited to water and sewer facilities, whether the site proposed for zoning change would be subject to flooding and the effect of such flooding on the proposed or possible improvements on the site, the physical characteristics of the site and the degree of site alteration which would be required to make the site usable for any of the range of potential uses under the proposed zoning classification, the potential need for expansion of public services and facilities to accommodate the proposed development, including the consideration of the results of timing and phasing analysis performed pursuant to section 901.2.12, transportation analysis, whether the proposed zoning change is consistent with the goals, objectives, and policies set forth in the adopted comprehensive plan, whether maintaining the existing zoning classification accomplishes a legitimate public purpose that protects the integrity of the goals, objectives, and policies of the comprehensive plan, the public's reliance upon the existing zoning, or another legitimate public purpose as determined by applicable law.
Okay. So Roberto, are you looking at the list?
I not look in the list, I hear the list, but there are a few items that basically 80% of the items apply, but affect living condition is one of those. The traffic system will be, safety will be a condition that for me is one of the main ones. And of course, the traffic starts for how busy it will be and the safety of the people who drive around there every single day. It's clear that this will lower the property value of the existing properties around the area. I think with that is more than enough. And the land use patterns also.
So based upon what you said, I identified.
Well, Mr. Chair, I think staff can figure it out from what he said, which criteria to cite.
Okay, very good.
I think that was sufficient.
Thank you.
Unfortunately, he's going to have to state that again. I apologize. Just I'm running like probably 3 different things while he's speaking. So if you would state that again, I'm sorry, Roberto.
Denise, can we just get it from the minutes? As long as the clerk.
Yes, we'll get it from the minutes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. We have a motion. We have a second. Any further discussion of the motion? Okay. I'll take a roll call vote.
Jamie Girardi. Roberto Size.
Aye.
Christopher Poole.
Aye.
Chris Williams.
Nay.
Chairman Charles Gray.
Aye.
The vote was 3-2 with Jamie Girardi and Chris Williams voting nay. The motion passes.
Okay, there is one last item on the agenda. If all the other folks that are on that are not staff members, please, is there a way to disconnect those? And there is a public, a noted item that Mr. Pitos, I believe, will be presenting if he's on.
Denise, they don't have to be disconnected. They just have to be muted.
Yeah, I just, this is not an item that we want public comment on. It's not a public comment item. It's just a noted item.
I'm saying, I agree. I'm saying people have the right to listen.
Yes.
Can't speak to it. So as long as they're muted, you're fine.
Okay, can we make sure that everyone is muted and cannot unmute? Is that a possibility?
Yes.
Okay, and is Terry Pitos on?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, I tried closing all my windows in order to try to share. So if you give me just a second, I'll bring that back up. I apologize for that. So I don't know what was going on. I couldn't share my screen. Let me see if I could still not share my screen. Let's see if it. Should be a couple more moments. I apologize. I'm still not able to share my screen.
I can share my screen, if anything.
Try to see if you could share yours, Terry. I can't share my screen. I tried again and I can't.
Sure. I just need to be, yeah, there we go.
There you go, Terry.
Okay. I think everybody can see that.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Item PDD 20-0584A is a noted item on your hybrid virtual meeting agenda for today. It's essentially an informational piece to give the Planning Commission an update on a new directive that was policy directive that was provided by the Board of County Commissioners. So do a real quick summary, read the policy directive, explain it a little bit, and then that'll be the presentation. So Pasco County's 2025 comprehensive plan outlines various policies, objectives that reinforce the review of a project based on the ability to adequately provide for employment generating uses and the ability to appropriately locate and transition between commercial uses. So the policy that was established by the board maintains a little bit of flexibility for staff and development community to work together to meet the intent of a desired outcome, which we'll walk through in just a second. As I mentioned, the Board of County Commissioners approved the policy directive during the June 30, 2020 session meeting, that is, morning session. So on the overhead or on your screens right now is the language that the Board of County Commissioners approved. For those who can't read it, easy, I'll go ahead and read it. So it says, new multifamily residential zoning and future land use amendments along the State Road 5456 corridor from Gun Highway to US 301 shall be integrated with a mixture of employment generating land use, either existing uses in an infill scenario or new uses.
preserve a balance between residential development and employment generating uses along the county's transit corridors and designated areas for urban development. In addition, along the State Road 5456 corridor from Gun Highway to US 301, the first 2,000 feet adjacent to the corridor shall place new multifamily zoning and future land use amendments behind non-residential land uses, unless the development will vertically integrate with a mixture of land use. To the extent this requires amendments to the Land Development Code and/or the comprehensive plan, the board directs the Planning and Development Department to work expeditiously on those updates. So real quick, the 30,000-foot overview of this is that the Board of County Commissioners along a specific corridor, 5456 from Gun to 301, is asking for multifamily zonings and future land use amendments to be integrated with a mixture of employment generating land uses, essentially create a mix of uses. And then in particular, the first 2,000 feet adjacent to the 5456 corridor, both on the north and south sides, should place that new multifamily zoning and future land use amendments behind non-residential land use. The intent being that you would be able to preserve the frontage of that road for mostly non-residential, well, not mostly, but all non-residential land use. So in effect, you can put multifamily still within the 2,000 feet, but it has to be behind commercial, let's say, or office or whatever other non-residential land use there may be. So you would have to establish those parcels before you build in your multifamily. Unless, of course, it's a mixed-use building where the first floor, let's say, that faces the corridor has a commercial component or an office component, and then the second, third, fourth, etc. stories above it can have the multifamily along the corridor. I must note that there is an update to the policy directive being taken to the board on July 14, and it's mostly clarifications on when the effective date of the directive is, or excuse me, not when the effective date is, but what applies to the effective date. So new rezonings or future land use amendments in the affected area that have not yet filed complete applications as of the effective date of this directive will comply with the directive. So if you haven't applied your project yet, this directive will be applicable to your multifamily project on that corridor. And then, of course, there's additional clarification in that the affected area is defined as State Road 54 from Gun to I-75 and State Road 56 from I-75 to 301. The affected area does not include State Road 54 east of I-75. So the spur that goes north is not part of this discussion. And just for the purposes of letting everybody understand the geography a little bit, here's Gun. So as you read the map here, the top segment is from Gun Highway to Land O'Lakes Boulevard, State Road 54. The middle segment is from Land O'Lakes Boulevard to Bruce B. Downs. And the bottom segment is from Bruce B. Downs to US 301. And what you can see here are a couple of things. The edge of the color area, I'm kind of outlining it with my mouse if everybody can see that. The edge of the color area is the 2,000 feet of distance from the corridor. Within that area is where the policy applies. And also the other thing to note is as we move down 54, let's say from Land O'Lakes Boulevard, we come to Wesley Chapel Boulevard, and State Road 54 then goes northbound ahead of I-75 or west of I-75. This segment you'll notice is not in it, but this segment, Bruce B. Downs, is in all the way to 301. Any questions?
That yellow, Terry, that yellow that's designated, that's, I'm trying to, the thing that down at the bottom, I think, does it say Res 1 is yellow? Yeah. Because that seems like it flies in the face of what you're trying to do. Maybe I'm reading it wrong.
No, I don't think the colors are showing up well. on this image. I could double check. We could go onto Pasco Mapper to be sure.
Because you don't want residential in that area, right? Unless it's multifamily.
Mr. Chair, I don't think that could be right because 56 east to Bruce B. Downs is Wiregrass, and I know Wiregrass is not Res 1.
Yeah, so it's not, something's wrong there.
Yeah, I don't think those colors can be right.
Yeah, okay.
The coloration come off a little differently for whatever reason. But most of the corridor, in terms of the residential future land uses that I'm looking at here, most of it is Res 6, Res 3, PDs, ROR, and pretty
Commercial?
much. There's some commercial, yeah. But most of it is Res 3 and Res 6 with ROR and Res 9. Yeah, Res 12 and Res 9. But it's that yellow color is not showing up right. It's not representing Res 1.
Okay. I don't want to go by that map then.
Are there any other questions?
Any questions?
Terry's Jamie Girardi. I guess just a quick question for you, and I'm sure, I guess I understand the board's goal here. The board's objective is try to keep multifamily directly off the 54, 56 corridor, but in a way, aren't those areas, just as a planner, aren't those areas where you'd want to focus density? I mean, along that corridor, the 2,000 feet just seems like it's extremely large to me. I mean, half a mile for commercial off of that corridor just seems like it's a pretty wide swath. I would think you'd want to try to focus density and development along that corridor because that's where all the infrastructure is and that's where you want your development. I guess that's just a question for you as a planner.
Yeah, I don't think the policy eliminates multifamily from the corridor. What it's saying is that within the 2,000 feet, they should be specifically arranged either behind non-residential land uses or vertically integrated. So the multifamily is still capable of locating within the corridor. It just has to be done in a specific way. And yes, where there's high intensity transit traffic, et cetera, is typically where in infrastructure is typically where high density development is appropriately located.
Yeah, I guess my only point, maybe this isn't the case, and maybe if I own a standalone piece of property that's 1,000 feet off of 56, but I don't own the 1,000 feet from my property to Gun Highway or to 56, I can't develop it as multifamily unless I join up or team up with and do something in conjunction with that other user. Is that correct, or am I reading the ordinance wrong or the information wrong?
That's not correct, Jamie, because you can vertically integrate. So there's an exception if you vertically integrate. So as long as you had non-residential on the ground floor, you could still put multifamily above it.
I understand that. Okay.
Okay, everybody's clear. Any other questions?
Mr. Chairman, the staff confirmed with me, I was speaking to them on the side here. The yellow is referring to PD, according to staff. It's just the map is kind of small, so it's the hatches are not showing up very well.
You said the yellow is what?
Well, staff's letting me know that the yellow areas are PD plan development areas. They're not. It's just showing the future land uses within that buffer area. It's not showing them beyond. So we're not seeing the traditional shapes that we've grown accustomed to seeing. We're just seeing what's in the middle of the buffer. But those tend to be the PD areas from what I'm being informed.
Okay, well, it'd just be confusing if we handed this to the public because the yellow down at the bottom says Res 1.
Yeah, I'm trying to zoom in here, but you can kind of make out some hatches that are not showing up. The PD has hatches, but in the map, you can clarify it.
See the lines, they're vertical lines. They don't show up very well.
No. Okay. Thought you were trying to trick me.
No, sir.
All right.
That's all
Are we
I have.
done?
Yes.
Great. Thank you, Terry.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, David. Thank you, Denise.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Okay. We have a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Motion carries. I
Aye.
heard that.